You're back at the Faculty Factory podcast, and I'm Kim Skarupski on the sunshiny, beautiful island of Galveston at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas, looking at my dear friend, one of the people I love the most in the world, Miss Heather Brode. Friend of the podcast, you know Heather Brode's name. She's been on the podcast before. In fact, scroll on back, go to facultyfactory.org. Scroll on back to episode number 300, where Heather was talking about her new book. Heather, what's the title of that new book you wrote?
Well, the new book we wrote, Kim, is called The Insider's Pocket Guide to Navigating a Faculty Career in Academic Medicine.
Your book sounds fascinating. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Our book is fascinating.
And it's been such a hit, and it's been so well received. And you had the genius idea of organizing a national event where we invited colleagues and friends we hopped on a Zoom call. We didn't think it'd be like you and me and maybe our cousins and a dog or something. We had a nice turnout, and people really got into it. We've hit a nerve with it. What was the name of that session, Heather?
Rethinking Success in Academic Medicine.
Right. And what did we do at that session? Give people like a little teaser of what happened during that hour of us 40 or so together.
Yeah. It was an opportunity to reflect on the traditional measures of success in academic medicine and how well they work for us, knowing that we are people with our own values, missions, interests, and yet we have all of these expectations that we're trying to fulfill. And so how do we create this balance between what we need and want to deliver to our institutions, what they need and want to receive from us, and build fulfilling and meaningful careers for ourselves, not just ones that kind of check the boxes of success on paper.
And what were those three dimensions that we kind of like our framework was?
Right. Clarity, shift, explore.
Clarity, shift, and explore. I remember we talked back and forth about what that meant.
Yeah.
And we got I think that's a really good framework. Of course, you've been on the circuit. You went to University of Cincinnati and we're talking about your book. And that session sounded really great. I didn't get a chance to hear it, but of course, anything you touch is golden. And I loved it when you shared it with me, what you should know about academic medicine, but no one tells you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Going to get a little kind of high level overview of that specific section of our book or the idea and how you had that conversation at Cincinnati. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Thanks. It was a really fun talk to give. And I just want to give a shout out of thanks to Mary Mazik, who invited me down to Cincinnati. She's the director of faculty affairs for the Department of Internal Medicine there, doing a wonderful job, and appreciate her.
So, all right, let's get into this. What we should know, or what a person should know about academic medicine, but no one tells us. So why are there things that we don't know? I don't understand this. I mean, in our topical, our skill area as clinicians and scientists and educators and administrators, there's stuff we need to know, and it's told to us, it is taught to us, it is modeled for us. And then these other things are just kind of the hidden curriculum. There's a concept like that stuff is there that nobody knows. And you think, well, how come nobody told me that? Why is there stuff that nobody teaches us? And what is this stuff?
Well, I love that you framed it as the hidden curriculum, because I do think that that's what it is. And I think a lot of it stems from the medical model itself. There's the, see one, do one, teach one model of medical education. And so we often spend the careers just kind of replicating what we know and then teaching to others what we've learned. And so that's how knowledge advances and progresses. And it doesn't really invite the reflection on, well, what is it that, I would like to do or change or shift or what have you? And for good reason, right? I mean, can you imagine if you were training as a surgeon and your attending surgeon said to you, like, just go ahead, do that appendectomy any old way you want. Probably wouldn't work so well. So the medical model does make a lot of sense in medical training, but then when it comes to building a career, there's endless opportunity. And as you mentioned in the question, we're educators, we are clinicians, we are scholars, researchers, advocates. I mean, we hold all of these hats and all of this information. And so, what do we do with that? What do we do with this huge skill set when we're our own individuals and we're not now just following in somebody's footsteps and teaching or doing what we have been taught?
It's frustrating, and yet sometimes I feel like, well, we should be talking about some of these things. So one example is negotiating for a job. When you and I know many of our colleagues and people we coach and mentor who, and there's a book written about it, right? Women don't ask and ask for it, and all these kinds of books where you think, how come nobody tells you how to negotiate? Because you learned someone got a job and took a job and just said, I said, well, how did how'd that work out? How'd you get the resources and salary? They go, oh, they told me what it was going to be. And I'm like, you didn't negotiate? Well, no, I didn't know I could. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know you could? Of course you could. Well, no, they said that pretty much the budgets are pretty much set. And I'm like, not necessarily. And if it's set on the salary, did you talk about resources? No. So that it's maddening. And so I always kind of have this struggle with everything shouldn't be on the individual person to figure out and know what they don't know. Some of that should be obligation is on the people doing the hiring of like, let's be fair, let's be equitable, use opportunities, teachable moments to say, I remember when I met my dog walker here in Galveston, and I said she was new to walking dogs. She took care of cats mostly, and so I was the first dog person. And I said, well, okay, so great. This sounds great. They like you, you like them, and it sounds like you're flexible and you can work with my schedule. What's your rate? And she's like, oh, I don't know, like $10. And I was like, per walk? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, per dog? She's like, well, no, just one. I mean, just $10. And I was like, no, that's way too cheap. And so that might be silly. And some people are like, well, good for you that you do that. I mean, there's some, I think, moral, ethical obligation to entering into and teaching people and helping people have a good start and a good start and a good feeling that they are being taken care of, that we are investing in you. So of course, we're not going to buy this expensive car and put, subpar gasoline in it and not do oil changes and stick you in a ratty old garage. We're going to take care of you. So that to me means something. And so that's part of my kind of like, why don't we know things that shouldn't always be on the person? And yet there are these things that mentoring and coaches can share, the little things about this is how you get promoted here, or to get things done, you don't talk to that person has the role. You talk to the admin. So those kinds of things are all part and parcel of any environment, right?
I think what I'm hearing you kind of speak to is frame of reference. So, if you don't know something, and it is really helpful to have somebody else who can share things with you, right? But everybody's limited by their own frame of reference. And so it is really helpful as you are embarking on a career in academic medicine, or even if you've been in academic medicine for a long time, to have a wide network of people, because then you have so many different perspectives and frames of reference that can help you grow and advance. So, I mean, I can imagine you in your role at the institutional level. I mean, you see things from a much different perspective than a department chair, a division director, an individual faculty member, right? And so if somebody really wants to advance a center or an initiative or something institutionally, you would be a great resource for them. If what they want to do is confined to a clinic, for instance, you're probably not the best resource for them. But again, you've had so many conversations with faculty across all departments throughout many years of your career. You probably also do still have some insight there. So I feel like it's that's kind of like what you're alluding to a little bit is, faculty need to expand their own perspective by helping, by meeting with others to, grow their own frame of reference, and also try not to limit it just to, your immediate sphere, but branching out beyond your immediate sphere of influence as well. That's how we
Exactly.
grow and also create visibility for our work.
Yeah, you're so right, Heather. This frame of reference is important, and context matters and situations matter. And I'm also reflecting on a podcast episode I recorded just recently with Dr. Gulshan Sharma here at UTMB, and he's so brilliant. I love talking to this guy. I learned so much. And he was pointing out, he talked about leadership is personal, that in some way, I mean, knowledge is so abundant now. We could just chat GPT and any artificial intelligence, amplified intelligence, whatever we're going to call it, just jack in and kind of download all this information. It's so abundant, but the application of it is so personalized. So also part of the thing is like, well, how come nobody told us about this? How come nobody told me this or that? Some things can't be taught, they have to be experienced. And so some of these things, like he was saying, a leader has to have a vision, but my vision can't be your vision. I can't teach you how to get your vision. You have to create your vision that comes through experience and self-reflection and pausing to really think and reflect and as you said, like triangulate data by going all these different frames. So there's some things that, yes, there is an on top of the water, like on the policies, procedures. There's that little hidden thing, kind of black box kind of stuff. Then there are the people in the context and the situation, but everything is so flowy that, with the current economic climate and political climates and gosh, weather down in, hurricanes, things change so quickly that you can't just necessarily learn one thing and then do that one thing. And then that one thing will be applied differently if you're Heather or if you're Kim. And then if you're Heather on Wednesday or Heather on October or Heather on, in stress, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I just want to amplify something that you just said there, which is about yes, there's the fluctuation and there's the change. Nothing is ever static. And so being nimble is important. And also, kind of going back to that perspective around the sharing of knowledge. Sometimes I don't think we realize that we have knowledge to share, or we
Hmm.
have these hard won lessons that we can pass along. We sometimes have this tendency to think like, it was only me. This
Yeah,
was only my experience. I'm the only one who struggled with this.
I'm the
So
dummy. Everybody else knows it. They're looking at me going, Kim, duh.
yeah, exactly. So why would I tell you, hey, it's just ABC is all you need to do when, yeah, I'm going to assume that you probably know that already. So I think that's another reason
Mhm.
why some of these things become a hidden curriculum or they become a little bit mysterious within our cultures. It's certainly
Mhm.
not malicious in any way. It's appreciating the fact that our experience, to your point, is personal, and yet each of us can glean something. You can't tell me exactly what it is I should be doing, but
Yeah.
you can certainly share what you've learned and how you've come to know it, and it'll clue something in with me. And I can then pursue other opportunities, but only if I have that self knowing. And I think that's what you were talking about before, too. And we focus on in the book is that that's really the root of it is first the self knowing,
Mhm.
because nobody can really help you if you don't know where it is that you want to go or
Yeah.
what help that you need.
So yeah, another question I know you addressed in your talk was what surprises new faculty. I think we've kind of covered some of that, but things like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I had no idea. And I'm suspecting that a lot of that kind of frustration of like, oh, how come somebody didn't tell me that, or the armchair quarterbacking things or events or promotions or roles and leadership opportunities and obligations and expectations that weren't clear in the contract. Because part of that is getting to the point of being a faculty member in an academic health institution. Prior to that, we've had the checklist of the courses and the syllabi and the curriculum spelled out for us. So we're just like someone said, all right, Heather, you want to do that? Well, here, you got to do these things. Okay, on it. And in this class, okay, you have to write 3 papers, 4 exams, give a presentation. You're like, okay. So we're used to checking boxes and having been told, thou shalt, you
Yeah.
must, and graded on that. And then we get here, and there's really nothing like that. It's not so explicit. It's
It's
implicit.
not.
And so that's kind of the thing. Well, isn't anybody telling me what to do and how to do it? No.
Well, and even with that, I mean, there is, of course, the promotion guidelines, right? And so we can look at those in one of two ways. You can look at them as a checkbox, list of things that must be done, or you can look at it as kind of the milestones to achieve or a general guideline. But then there's also a bit of a hidden curriculum with the promotion materials as well. I'm reminded of somebody who was in the same institution as me and wanted some help with promotion. And she was struggling at her department level because her teaching evaluations they were excellent. And yet they were in the bottom quartile of her department. And so they wouldn't promote her based on where she ranked within, the scope of her entire department, even though she was still excellent.
What?
So it's things like that, kind of appreciating, well, what are some of these subtleties or nuances that factor into this? And then also, and I'm kind of conflating 2 points here, but also then there's well, do I do something just to get promoted? Or do I have the intention in mind of where it is that I want to go and then do work in support of that objective? And I think sometimes people go backwards. They're like, well, I need to do 10 papers to get promoted.
Yeah.
And so they'll, offer themselves as a co-author on anything. And then it comes time for promotion and you're like, I don't know that I understand your contributions, your career. Who are you? What are you contributing? And so somebody might meet the metrics on paper, and yet they're also not promotable because it's not consistent, it's not aligned, it doesn't seem to orient to any one or two things in particular. So so
They've
just
lost
kind of back to
the spirit of some faculty members you and I know from years of doing faculty development that whenever we have our events, inevitably, like you could almost do a March Madness, like bet on it. Like someone's going to say, how many grants do I need? How many papers do I need? There's always that question of how many. And there are people who would definitely, like, I know some people, I know you say it doesn't matter, but we know that people are counting. And so, of course, our rule of thumb was like, well, if it's like 7 years on average between assistant professor and associate professor, and then associate professor and professor, if it's about 7 years, if you're getting about 3 papers on average every year, at least one of them's first author, you're going to have about 21 publications. That's pretty much the standard rule of thumb. But if you're going to get a paper in Cell or Nature, boom, you're done. You can't, or if you're going to get 50 papers in some low bottom tier journal that nobody reads. Like my aunt one day, my godmother was so proud when I came home for Christmas and she had a clipping from the National Enquirer that had mentioned one of my studies on the refrigerator. She's like, "You're published." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not going to be putting that in my CV that the National Enquirer covered my whatever." But yeah, if you have that kind of stuff, you're missing the mark. The spirit, the point is to have impact.
Right.
National, international impact. And so these objective metrics are just ways of, we're saying in general, but that's where the confusion gets. I think that faculty, you're right. They need to know the nuts and bolts, but then how do you interpret that? What does that mean in practice? Broadening the frames. Who else has done this? What does this look like? How do you interpret that? And that's where we need to do some work. And it sounds, it's unfortunate because, but it's not. It makes sense. Everybody's personalized. So you couldn't say to an audience of 10, 15, 100,000 faculty going, this is what you need to do. Well, half this stuff may not applicable. What do you mean? Do exactly that? Of course not. So faculty get frustrated, but that is the whole point, that we are all unique. And it's demonstrating impact in your own way and what makes sense to you.
Impact really is the objective, and it so often gets lost sight of in favor of the metrics, right? Because the metrics are easy to count. They're easy to know. I did or I did not write 20 papers, pretty obvious. But did anybody read the papers? Have they shifted the field in any way? Are they influencing anything at all? And that's really what the objective is, which also is why in our book and our orientation from a coaching perspective, we really try to emphasize the notion of be intentional about what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it. Because if you set out with your intentionality, then you're going to choose the opportunities that best align to it. Because of course, there's ample opportunity out there. People will come at you day and night with things you could do, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin by doing too much. And then you get to do something that's important and meaningful to you. Because of course, yes, there's thousands of ways to shape the field, to have impact. You can do it across any of the mission areas. You can do it across all of the mission areas. But again, what makes you tick? What makes your heart sing? And I think it's interesting that some faculty don't seem to, I don't know if it's that they don't know or they don't know how to go about it. Or maybe it's both, either not knowing exactly what makes their heart sing or how to go about, delivering on the thing that makes their heart sing. But trying to get closer to that is what then ultimately becomes a sustainable career, and isn't just going through the motions, isn't just trying to hit a milestone, but focusing that attention, energy, practice on something greater than yourself.
To me, a lot of this stuff, in my old age now, is I recognizing it's knowledge of self, knowing ourselves. And it sounds trite, and it sounds like, well, duh, of course I know myself. I've met myself 60 years ago, so yeah, I know myself. And we change and we grow, ideally. And I think what I see in early career faculty, particularly, is this maybe kind of just a tunnel vision on, they've been so focused on achieving milestones and earning the degrees and getting the credibility and learning the skills and the fellowships and the postdocs and the residency and all the things. And they're just so used to being, type A, overachieving. Give me something, I'm gonna learn it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna crush it, I'm gonna conquer it, I'm gonna stick it on my CV, I'm gonna do the things. And yet one of the things that we're never told to do is, stop, reflect, think, who are you? Who do you want to be? Who can you be? And that to me is that reflection, that kind of coachable, the concept of thinking, who am I? What's my preferred future vision of myself? If this is great, this is great. I mean, good for you. But like, you and I wrote this book because we suspected and we knew that there was a lot that could be compiled and aggregated in form for people who are coming up behind us that would say, oh, good, thanks a lot. Maybe save some people some grief and heartache. And so I think I'm circling back to the fact that I know that the self-knowledge, knowing self, is the beginning of all wisdom. If we can help faculty members, early career and mid-career, and then as you know, I'm finding an advanced career, is thinking, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for a million years. I've been doing this procedure, this class, this whatever. What else am I going to do? How can I possibly release or let go of something and drop into a big black void? I have to have something to go to, and who am I if I'm not this?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, what do you want to talk about next?
Well, I'm just going to share a quick quote by, or it's not a quote, but when you were kind of talking about that arc, it just reminded me of Simone de Beauvoir and her investigation of authenticity. And she talks about authenticity being a discovering of true self, and that our life's work, in essence, is to kind of reveal ourselves to ourselves throughout our lives. And it just goes back. Yeah, I know it's kind of heavy, but it goes back to that. Yeah, notion of we're not static, and we change and we grow and we evolve and we move and we meet new people, and all of those things continues to shape and grow us. And then back to the point about that malleability or how we mesh with our environments. I mean, all of that is interdynamic.
Yeah. How does having a personal mission and vision
Hmm.
help define success? Because I know
Hmm.
when I've ever been asked, and gone through leadership courses, like, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, 5-year plan? I don't know. What's your 10-year? I don't know. So, and people say mission, vision, values, come up with your elevator pitch. What's your mantra? I always would get annoyed at those kinds of questions earlier, I guess, on my career because I was so focused on papers, grants,
Hmm.
teaching and checking the boxes and fleshing out the CV. And now I do, of course, in reflection, retrospect, see the value of had I been maybe more just reflective and authentic in who I was and what my skills were and being who I was and not worrying about what my
Yeah.
mentors were or what I thought I should look like or what I thought teaching a college course should look like and being more me that I would have not maybe struggled as much and thinking I
Mhm.
didn't want to write these grants and I was writing all these fancy pants grants and none of them were getting funded. I'm like, well, I don't really like writing grants. So why do I keep doing it? It's
Yeah.
not working. They're not getting funded. It's really hard. I'm all by myself. I don't like this. So why
Hmm.
don't I do what I like? So how does having a personal mission and vision help us and help faculty members drive success?
I mean, to me, it goes back to the intentionality that we were talking about. If we can, the intentionality and self knowing. So, if we can start by appreciating what our values are, they serve as an anchor for us, an anchor for decision making. So, I don't know about you, but when I embark on a coaching engagement, I often start with values because I want to know what somebody was anchored in and what's meaningful to them, because they're more likely to sustain motivation for themselves throughout their career or throughout the engagement as well as their career, if it's connected to what really matters to them, to their values. And then from there, just like corporations have missions and visions, having one personally as well, again, it provides grounding, it provides context, it provides a frame for decision making. So many people, especially new faculty, they'll and it doesn't matter if you're new to an institution or new to being faculty, but you'll come into a role and, here's 80 things you could do.
Hmm.
We need you on this committee and this committee, and here's an opportunity, and I want you to be a co-author and a collaborator. And if you don't know what to say yes or no to, you can get kind of swept up in accepting a whole bunch of things. And then again, you're a little bit rudderless, a little bit directionless. Uh, if you have a vision and a mission, you can more easily see how does this align to the way in which I would like to create impact. And it also then provides a way to gracefully say no, because sometimes people don't want to say no because they think it just sounds rude. But if we have a vision and a mission, we can say, well, I'm really invested in X right now. And unfortunately, it sounds like this is a little bit more Y. So I'm going to have to turn it down. Thanks so much for thinking of me.
Yeah.
So now we have something, and then we're also giving people an opportunity to know who we are. And so then when something comes up in X, they're like,
Mhm.
oh, I know, I need to go talk to Kim because she said this is in her wheelhouse, what she really
Yeah.
wants to do right now. So it just, helps get the right opportunities to us, helps us keep the opportunities that are less suited for us at
Yeah.
bay, and just provides that sense
Yeah.
of direction, thoughtfulness.
Yeah, I like how you're describing that. And I too have met and worked with many, many faculty who are just overloaded. They come in like my plate is just rolling off. I mean, my plate is so heaped high, I can't possibly take another thing on. And yet the other person is like, but I think I should get an MBA and I think I should do this and I think I should do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
just described a long list of things you're doing and opportunities keep coming because yes, academic health is the proverbial
Mm,
cookie jar. And then something happened to me, gosh, I don't know when it was, but it was years ago. And I kept thinking, it was before I learned to say no or learned to be strategic. The strategic no is I realized when my boss asked me to do something, I thought, oh gosh, she really needs me to do this. And I don't want to disappoint her. And she'll be writing me a letter of recommendation. And of course, you have to be a team player and don't want to be saying no. And I finally ended up, I got a talked to my mentor and ended up saying no. And lo and behold, it was like within 20 minutes, she had asked somebody else. And my roommate, not roommate, the office mate was like, oh, Dr. So just asked me to do something, something, something. I'm like, oh. And then I realized, wait a minute, Kim, it was humbling to sometimes realize that when we are asked to do something from the higher ups, almost like, get over yourself, Kim. It's not because you're so great. And that's why people want you to do stuff because, like, oh, I happen to see you at the water fountain. You'd be great for this. I know I would. I know I would absolutely be great. I was just asked. No, they need somebody to do something. You happen to pop in their mind, or you sent them an email, or you walk by and they go, he'll do it. Back in the old days, give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything. Give it to Kim. She'll say yes to everything. This idea that, wait a minute, so the humbling part of it, yes, part of it is you want to be good and you want to say yes and you want to be a team player and do the right things. And nobody would ever give me an opportunity if it wasn't good for me, right? No. And it's not malicious. It's because leaders are busy. We are bit players in their lives. They're the primary lead downstage,
Mhm.
backstage, upstage, whatever, toward the audience, that part of the stage. They are the key primary actors. We're bit players, but we are the primary actors, the stars in our own movies. So
Mhm.
it's sometimes hard and humbling to realize, get over yourself. You're not all that.
I just I think I'm really late to this pop culture thing, but I just learned about main character energy.
Oh, is this it?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me.
So I mean, my impression of it is main character energy is exactly that. Like we're the main characters of our own lives.
Love it.
And so, what kind of main character energy are you putting out there? And then is it, in like the protagonist kind of way? Are you the villain? Yeah, but also just, kind of is that like self-centeredness. And I think, and I'm really talking out of turn here, I think it has something to do, with like the TikToks and,
Yeah. This
yeah.
Heather,
Hmm.
you have just
Hmm.
created a new workshop, seminar, book thing. It's going to be a whole thing, a role play vignettes. I can see it. I can see it happening. Main character energy, because that's a leadership lesson. So many lessons on main character energy. And yeah, we'll have to go after
Yeah.
we hit stop and record this. We're going to flesh this one out.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, people. We are going to be doing something on main. You're not the star of the world. You are not the keeper of all truth. We are not all Beyoncés. So we
Oh,
have
it's
areas
a
where
shame.
we crush it and we're really good. There's a humble part of our recognizing, yes, you are so smart, you're so accomplished, you are brought here to do great things, and you are doing great things, and you matter and you're important. And you know, check yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of have a healthy balance about that. And it's okay to say you don't know when you're going to ask. And
Oh, some of this goes back to my faculty affairs days of seeing, where people went astray. And, I hate to keep going back to this notion of intentionality, but I think that's where so much of it stems from. You get this vague kind of advice like you have to find a niche or niche, depending on how you say it. And people are like, well, what's my niche? What does that even mean? And again, it ultimately goes back to impact, the place where you will have impact, where you will become known. For some faculty, they don't know what that is. And that is totally okay. And then to be in that space of spending a year or two trying to identify, where can my talent best fit here? What are gaps that I see? I think people underestimate their perspective. So if you're new to an institution, new to a department, new to a role, anything that's bringing you fresh perspective, you have a lens that the people around you don't have because they've been in it for a long time and we become habituated to things. And so if you're junior, though, you might not feel comfortable saying like, well, why do we do it like that? Or could it be done like this? Or I'm just really confused. And yet that really is a gift and a superpower in that moment, is being able to, you know, you don't have to tell people they're doing it wrong. That's probably not a good approach, but being curious about why things are being done the way that they are. And then you might find well, this is just the way we've always done them. Because oftentimes that's the case. That if that's something that lights you up, interests you, like, oh, I could fill this gap, I could solve this problem, I could create a better process here. That's a process of finding that niche, of finding that place to add value and create impact. And of course, if you find a gap and it sounds horrible or tedious to you to fill it, by all means, you don't have to. So this isn't a mandate, but it's an opportunity, because chances are where you're sniffing out problems, somebody else has seen it. They either don't know, haven't wanted to invest the energy, or again, have just become so habituated to it that, yeah, it's a pain point, but there's a bigger one around the corner. So why am I going to spend time here? So I would just say, that's a big one.
You said something really important that made me realize, I mean, you're such a good coach. And every time you open your face and start talking, I learned so much from you. And what I got from what you just said was that, your niche or your niche, and some faculty members, especially early career now, and I want to spend time on mid-career and advanced career at
Yeah.
some point in this little podcast here, but early career who may be like, I don't really know what it is. I'm trained, I get my fellowship, I did my residency, I'm good to go. I got all the things, I've got a research, I got all this stuff going, and yet I don't necessarily feel like I have a niche. And what you
Mhm.
described to me was that being aware and having the fresh eyes, the fresh perspective to kind of take in a new role, culture, ecosystem, whatever, patient population, learners, colleagues, it's going to come to you.
Mhm.
That to me, the reassurance of like, if you don't feel like you have it now, or you don't get it, you're unsure, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
going to come, and just pause a beat, have faith and confidence in all that wetware up there. It's going
Hmm.
to gel. I mean, back to your
Yes.
idea of like, don't do things just to do things. Don't be the careerist and I must be doing, doing, doing. We're human beings, not human doings. Just
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
in that moment, be in that place, let it settle. Notice, build in time to reflect, to observe, to be, as you said, curious, non-judgmental, curious. And before you know it, those light bulbs are going to go bing, 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 bing. And you are going to say, oh, I get it now. This is my lane. I'm not
Yeah.
only good at this, but I love it. And when I start
Yes.
talking about that, I get all excited. That's it. That's the thing.
That's it. Yeah. There should be some sense of ease with that. I think there's like an adage of the things, something along the lines of like, if it's not worth doing if it's easy, therefore it has to be hard. Well, I think sometimes another thing I see with faculty is they take that a little bit too far.
Mm,
That, they will go so hard. And sometimes that's also a signal that maybe it's not quite the right approach or not
yeah.
quite the right time. And so I think that differentiation between, what's ease, what has some sense of ease is doable, is, you might encounter resistance, but you're not necessarily trying to, you
Mhm,
know, break a wall down,
mhm,
versus, where do you find a little resistance? And then with some pressure, you do see the release. You see,
mhm.
the tide begin to change. And
Yeah.
so I, I guess that's the other kind
Yeah.
of place that I would offer as a, faculty are very good at continuing to persevere, and it's not always the right course of action. So how do you
You are
just
so right, because we are,
discern?
yeah, very persevere, stubborn. I'm going to
Mhm.
figure that out. I'm going to solve that problem. I'm going to cure. I'm going to treat. I'm going to do all the things without recognizing. Gosh, the old story of like a child is holding a knife, and the mother says to the little child, "Don't open your hand, open your hand, open your hand." Why? Because you're holding something that's dangerous. It's going to hurt you if you hold on to it. So the metaphor of like releasing the thing that is dangerous or could be harmful to you, and sometimes that is our own. We're getting in our own
Mhm.
ways. I don't get too metaphysical here, but I think here's anything worth doing is not going to be easy, but I found something, maybe this is it, the quote by Teddy Roosevelt. Nothing in the world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty. I have never in my life envied a human being who led an easy life. So that's one twist on the doing things, anything worth doing. If it's easy, everybody would do it. What do you think advanced career faculty or mid-career faculty could glean from our book?
Mm. I mean, I think I'll start with advanced career because kind of the point to you that you were making earlier around you've been doing something for so long, then what? It becomes so intertwined with how you think of yourself, with your own sense of self and identity, that branching outside of that, considering a next chapter, considering even cutting back in some fashion, can feel really terrifying. And so I think what we offer in the book is also a pathway or an opportunity to think about, who am I now? Which, you and I have talked quite a bit about outside of this recording of the podcast, but who am I now? What are my values now? What's important to me now? And when you will likely reveal to yourself that your priorities and interests are in fact shifting, that's okay. and I think, the fear of that will cause some people to hold back. And the curiosity about that gives an opportunity to lean in a bit more. And again, just, follow the same kind of pathway. What's your vision? What's your mission for, this part of your life? What are your values? What impact do you want to have? And just know for yourself that it's very okay that might be different than what you have done in the past. And then for mid-career, I would just also say, similarly, I think mid-career, can be a really tough time for faculty. And I think we see it a lot for mid-career women. We've done work with mid-career women, where in particular, the pressures of life are also compounded at mid-career. There's aging parents, there's raising children, all of those caregiving responsibilities. There was the pandemic a few years ago. Your career is ramping up. And so it can really feel like a pressure cooker. Yeah, pressure cooker. And so at mid-career, it's a nice opportunity as well to evaluate, how is this working for me now? What do I actually want now? And I think, again, some of us have spent so much time trying to prove ourselves that we don't appreciate that we have actually built up some capital and we can let some things go. We can turn some things down. And it might even seem like a big thing. It might be co-PI on some sort of a grant. It might be, running a center. It might be a big international talk. And we think if we don't do it, they'll forget about me, or it's probably not going to happen. The work has been done. Yeah. The reputation has been secured.
You've been earned it. And no one's going to delete your element from your CV. It's not an etch-a-sketch. They're going to take it and things are going to start coming off of it.
Yes, exactly. And so, where can that decompression come at that point in time? And where can you, really begin to trust in yourself, in that earning, in the work that you've done to get you to the place that you are, and kind of celebrate that and, bask in it a little bit. Faculty, I think a lot of people, the faculty really don't do a good job of celebrating. It's just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And it can feel really good to celebrate those wins, celebrate the effort that you've put in, celebrate, the accomplishments, the hard work, and also celebrate the time that you're not working, celebrate the achievements of, what you see your kids doing, or that you were able to spend 24 hours with them without checking email or whatever. But there's opportunity in there for sure.
Yeah, we have a chapter on transitions.
Yep.
It was good stuff. So Heather, the name of your book is The Insider's Pocket Guide to Navigating a Faculty Career in Academic Medicine. You can reach Heather at heather@heatherbrode.com and go to her website, heatherbrode.com. We're going to have her back here because she is one of my besties and I love her and I love the work she's doing. as we close off this podcast, clarify, shift, explore. That's kind of a theme. Clarify,
Mhm.
shift, explore. And we'll be doing some of that as we go forward. And hopefully, Heather, you come on back and we'll keep clarifying, shifting, and exploring.
Thanks. I would love that.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.